Hello, dear passengers. Welcome to another episode of Flight number High 2, pages 24 and 25. This is your captain, Mr. Mazlumi talking, wishing you a great flight and hope everything is just going fine. Well, I'm fine. I'm just fine. Thanks for asking. Well, guys, remember last session we had an introduction to transitional words and phrases. We said how these words and phrases help us to connect ideas, pieces of information, to help the movement or the flow of sentences comprehensible and to make logical connections between the sentences. Well, today, guys, we'll be discussing these words on page 24. I'll try to come up with some sentences using these phrases and we'll just put them in practice. Well, as I mentioned last session, everyone, there are some categories here. We've got some groups here. Well, the first category we have adding information. So to add information, to say something more. Check out the list, please. Again, also, and then. Besides, everyone means in addition, furthermore, and also. Equally important, important, equally important, when something is as important as the other one. Finally, first, further means more, extra. Furthermore means in addition to. Besides, what's more, furthermore. In the first place, at the beginning or in the beginning, in the first place. Last, moreover, what's more, furthermore, in addition, besides. Next, second, still, and to. Okay, now, some, let's say, example sentences, everyone. Okay, furthermore. So remember, furthermore means in addition. It means more importantly. I suggest we use bakers as our main suppliers. They're good, and furthermore, they're cheap. In addition or in addition to, okay, besides, as well or as well as. So, in addition to his apartment in London, he has a villa in Italy and a castle in Scotland. Wow. In addition or in addition to, as well as. In the first place. In the first place, guys, means in the beginning or at the beginning of a series of events. For example, the pants shrank when I washed them, but they weren't really big enough in the first place. Or another one, thankfully, he wasn't hurt, but he never should have been there in the first place. Moreover, again we use it to add information. It means also and more importantly. The whole report is badly written. Moreover, what's more, besides, it's inaccurate. Further or further to. Okay, everyone, we use it in business letters to refer to an earlier letter or earlier meeting, conversation, something previous. Okay. Further to your letter of March 11th, I should like to inform you of a number of recent developments regarding the Saffron Hill site. All right, let's move on. Later on, I will try to just provide you with more example sentences. Comparing, okay, when we compare two or more things. Also, in the same way, likewise, again, the same, in the same way, and similarly. Guys, they have the same meaning. Similarly, likewise, in the same way. Okay, likewise. Likewise means in the same way. Just water these plants twice a week. And likewise, the ones in the bedroom. Water the ones in the bedroom twice a week too. Similarly, in the same way, in a similar way. The children were similarly dressed. Or cars must stop at red traffic lights. Similarly, bicycles should stop too. But do they? Especially motorcycles. They don't. So cars must stop at the red traffic lights. Similarly, bicycles, motorcycles should stop too. Next category, we have granted. Granted means admittedly. Admittedly, granted. If you accept. Or, yeah. Naturally, in a natural way, and of course. So, granted. As I mentioned, granted means if you accept something. If you accept something. For example, granted that the story is true, what are you going to do about it? If you accept that the story is true, what the heck are you going to do about it? Granted that the story is true. Or naturally. Naturally means as you would expect. For example, naturally, we want to see a few job losses in the industry as possible. Naturally, in the natural way as you expect. Well, the next category, guys, is contrasting. Contrast means to show the differences. Well, although means even though, while, though, and yet, however, at the same time, or but at the same time. Everyone, at the same time means nevertheless, however, or but at the same time. Despite that means in spite of something, or in spite of the fact that. Even so, again it shows contrast. Even though means although, however, though. For all that, guys, means despite, in spite of. However, but, in contrast, just the opposite. In spite of means despite. Instead, nevertheless, however, nevertheless. On the contrary, just the opposite. On the other hand, on the one hand, on the other hand, otherwise, if not, if you don't, or else, otherwise, regardless, still, though, and yet. Okay. Here are our example sentences, everyone. Okay. Yes. So, contrasting. All right. Well, although means but, despite the fact that. Okay. For example, she walked home by herself, although she knew that it was dangerous. Even though she knew that it was dangerous. He decided to go, although I begged him not to. although, even though. He is rather shy, although he's not as bad as he used to be. But, however, she'll be coming tonight, although I don't know exactly when. Despite. Guys, despite means without taking any notice of something, or being influenced by something, or not prevented by something. For example, I still enjoyed the weekend despite the weather. Guys, an important pointer here. Remember, after despite and in spite of, we never ever use a complete sentence. We use a noun or a noun phrase. So we say despite the weather. It means despite the fact that the weather was terrible, for example. Another example. Despite repeated assurances that the product is safe, many people have stopped buying it. Or he managed to eat a big lunch despite having eaten an enormous breakfast. You see, despite plus a phrase, not a complete sentence. Even though means although. Even though he left school at 16, when he was 16, he still managed to become prime minister. Even though, although, while, to show contrast. For all, or for all that. Everyone, for all or for all that means despite. Despite. For all her qualifications, she is still useless at the job. Despite all her qualifications, she is useless. Okay, contrast or in contrast. So when we use in contrast, when there is an obvious difference between two or more things. For example, their economy has expanded enormously, while our economy, in contrast, has declined. So true. Or the amount spent on defense is in sharp contrast to that spent on housing and health. Next one we had in spite of. So in spite of means despite. Despite. Again, it shows a contrast. In spite of his injury, Ricardo will play in Saturday's match. In spite of his injury. Again, please pay attention. We use a phrase, not a complete sentence. Nevertheless. Nevertheless. Or say nonetheless. Never, none. Nevertheless, nonetheless. Well, guys, nevertheless means despite what has just been said or referred. I knew a lot about the subject already, but her talk was interesting nevertheless. However, her talk was interesting. Contrary, we say on the contrary. We use it to show that we think or feel the opposite of what has just been said or stated is correct. Okay. Didn't you find the movie exciting? So exciting. So I'd like to use on the contrary. On the contrary, I nearly fell asleep halfway through it. Just the opposite. On the other hand, guys, we say on the one hand and on the other hand. We use it to give another opinion or fact that should be considered as the one as well as the one already mentioned. For example, I'd like to eat out, but on the other hand, I should be trying to save money. Okay? Next one, for example, at the same time. Okay? At the same time. At the same time means, however, nevertheless, along with that. For example, Bill was able to pay for the damage. At the same time, however, nevertheless, he was very angry about the accident. Or we agreed to your demands. At the same time, however, we object strongly to your methods. Next, for example, we have otherwise. Otherwise is used after an order or a suggestion to show the result will be, if you don't follow the order or the suggestion, the result would be kind of different. For example, I'd better write it down. Otherwise, if I don't, or else, or I'll forget it. You need to study hard, otherwise you won't succeed. Phone me, otherwise your parents will start to worry. If you don't phone me, your parents will start to worry. Regardless. Regardless means despite, not being affected by something. For example, the plan for a new office tower went ahead regardless of local opposition, although there were some people opposing it. Or she knew it was dangerous to visit him except at night, but she set out regardless, in spite of the fact that there was some risk. It was risky, let's say. Or this job is open to all, regardless of previous experience. Or we had still. Still means despite that, in spite of that. You may not approve of what he said, but he's still your brother. I know you don't like her, but you still don't have to be so rude to her. Despite the fact that you don't like her, you don't need to be rude. Even though she hasn't really got the time, she still offered to help. Very, very nice of her, you know. Yet means despite that, however, we use it to add something that seems surprising because of something we said earlier. For example, simple yet effective. Simple, however, effective. He's overweight and old, and yet somehow he's attractive. Okay? Well, next category. Okay, just a minute. Yeah. So, next category is, okay, so emphasizing. Certainly, indeed, in fact, and of course. Okay, so Indeed, everyone, indeed means really, certainly. We use it to emphasize something. For example, indeed, it could be the worst environmental disaster in Western Europe this century. Or evidence suggests that errors may indeed be occurring. We live in strange times indeed, and many people in our beloved country are very poor indeed, so depressing. Or we have as a matter of fact, or in fact, or in actual fact, in fact, or in actual fact, or we say as a matter of fact. Everyone, we use this expression to add emphasis to what we are saying, or to show that the opposite of something, or something different from what went before is kind of correct. I don't work. In fact, I've never had a job. Have you always lived here? As a matter of fact, or in fact, the truth is, I've only lived here for the last 3 years. The next group is illustrating. To illustrate means to explain. Okay, illustration is the noun form. After all, as an illustration, it means to illustrate, to explain. Even, for example, for instance, again, for instance means for example. In conclusion, to conclude. Indeed, in fact, in other words, to put it in other words, in short, to summarize. It is true, of course, namely, specifically means in an exact way. That is to say, to illustrate, to explain, to illustrate. Thus and truly. Thus and truly. Okay, so illustration, yeah. So anyone, illustration means an example that explains or proves something. Okay, for example, this delay is a perfect illustration of why we need a new computer system. As an illustration, it can be an illustration. Or for instance, guys, means for example. For example, in the electronics industry, for instance, for example, 5,000 jobs are being lost. In conclusion means finally, to conclude. In conclusion, I'd like to thank our guest speaker. In other words, we use it to introduce an explanation that is simpler than the one given earlier. He was economical with the truth. In other words, to put it in other words, he was lying. Shame on him. In short, we use it before describing something or someone in a few words and as directly as possible. He's disorganized, inefficient, never there when you want him. In short, to put it in a nutshell, the man's hopeless. Namely, everyone, we use namely to give more detail or to be exact about something we have said. We need to get more teachers into the classrooms where they're most needed, namely in high poverty areas. I learned an important lesson when I lost my job, namely that nothing is 100% guaranteed. Yeah, so right. Uh, specifically, specifically means for a particular reason, for a special purpose reason. These jeans are designed specifically for women. I bought it specifically to wear at the wedding. We are aiming our campaign specifically at young people. We had thus. Thus means as a result of something that we have just mentioned. Thus. Most of the evidence was destroyed in the fire. Thus, therefore, so, it would be almost impossible to prove him or to prove that he was innocent, for example. Okay, guys, summarizing. Okay, summarizing. All in all, in general, all together, again, all in all, as has been said, finally, in brief, in short, briefly, in conclusion, to conclude, in other words, to put it in other words, in particular, particularly, especially, in short, in simpler terms, in summary, to summarize, on the whole, in general, on the whole, that is, another way, or in other words, therefore, so, to put it differently, in other words, and to summarize, in summary. Okay, all in all, considering all different parts of the situation. All in all. Okay. So, all in all, considering everything. All in all, I think you've done very well. In brief means in a very short form with very few details. So you didn't enjoy the party then? And your friend says, in brief, no. On the whole means in general, generally. We have our bad times, but on the whole, we are fairly happy. Glad to hear that. Therefore means so, for that reason. We were unable to get funding and therefore and so thus had to abandon the project. So sad. Okay, and well, last but not least, giving a time sequence, showing time order, everyone. After a while, afterwards, after that, again, also, and then, as long as, at last, at length, at that time, before, besides, earlier, eventually, which means finally, eventually, finally. Okay, here we go. Example time. Afterwards, or we say afterward or afterwards. It means after the time mentioned. We had tea, and afterwards and later then, we sat in the garden for a while. They separated, and soon afterwards and shortly afterwards and later, Jane left the country. As long as, or so long as. We use it to say that something must happen before something else can happen. I can come as long as I can leave by 4 p.m., for example. It means I can come if I can leave by 4 p.m. and the condition that, provided that, as long as. Bring your friends by all means, just as long as I know how many are coming. So you can bring whoever you wish, but please tell me. At length. At length means for a long time. George went on at great length about his various illnesses for a long time. Or when we say something happens at length, it happens after a long period of time. At length, the authorities allowed her to go home. Formerly. Formerly means in the past, before. The European Union was formerly called the European Community before, in the past. Meanwhile. Meanwhile means until something expected happens or while something is happening. Khan's starting college in September. Meanwhile, in the meantime, he's traveling around Europe. Moreover. Moreover means also, more importantly, as we discussed. The whole report is badly written. Moreover, it's inaccurate. We have, okay. Everyone, simultaneously. Well, we have the adjective simultaneous. Simultaneous. Simultaneous, guys, means happening or being done at the same time. Simultaneous. For example, there were several simultaneous explosions in different cities. Okay? Simultaneous. Exactly at the same time. Well, the adverb form is simultaneously, happening exactly at the same time. Two children answered the teacher's questions or the teacher's question simultaneously at the same time. They started answering simultaneously. Subsequent, guys, is an adjective. It means happening after something else. Subsequent. The book discusses his illness and subsequent resignation from the government. Or the explosions must have been subsequent to our departure because we didn't hear anything. So subsequent is an adjective. Subsequently means later, then, after that, subsequently as an adverb. In 1982, he was arrested and subsequently convicted on drug trafficking charges. Subsequently. Well, guys, as I promised earlier, I'd like to share more examples in case you might find them handy. Okay, here we go. Just check them out. Additionally or an additional. Additionally, the bus service will run on Sundays every 2 hours. Furthermore, he said he had not discussed the matter with her. Furthermore, what's more, besides, he had not even contacted her. Also, we are unable to repair this watch. Also, this is the fourth time this has happened. 2. I love wearing earrings. I design and make them too. Moreover, the report is badly presented. Moreover, what's more, in addition, besides, furthermore, it contains inaccuracies. Along with, together with. Along with parties and parliaments, elections have lost their charm. For example, for instance, there are many interesting places to visit in the city. For example, for instance, the Botanical Garden or the Art Museum. For example, in Shiraz, Iran, is the Botanical Garden. Proof of this. This building are a living proof of this existence. So we must preserve it. So this building is a living, okay, it's better to say, including Christmas Day and Boxing Day, I've got a week off work. Namely, we need to concentrate on our target audience, namely women aged between 20 and 30, such as, for example, I prefer to wear casual clothes such as jeans and a sweatshirt. In this case, I think I would have made a difference in this case. Because of we were unable to go by train because of the rail strike. Remember everyone, after because of, we don't use a complete sentence. We use a phrase, a noun or a noun phrase. With this in mind, we must ensure more job security. In fact, the fighting became even more brutal on Sunday in order to do something. In order to achieve this, we need a budget. If you want to achieve this, we need a budget. Due to, because of, owing to. The event is off due to a scheduling error, because of a scheduling error. As a result, because of. His wife left him as a result, of course, so, therefore, then, as a result, he became very depressed, sad. As a consequently, therefore, she has lived in France and as a consequently, therefore, so, speaks French fluently. Therefore, he is only 17 and therefore not eligible to vote, not old enough to vote. Thus, he didn't work hard. Thus, so, he was fired. Consequently, as a consequence, therefore, my car broke down and consequently I was late. Hence, therefore, it is very late. Hence, therefore, thus, you must go to bed. For this reason. For this reason, they are not a good choice for exterior use. All right. After tells us about order sequence. Mary arrived after Alex left. Provided means if or only if. They can listen to music provided they disturb nobody, if or as long as, remember. Wherever means everywhere, of course everywhere, no matter where or regardless of where. They can go wherever they want. Even though means in spite of something. I won't go to the party even though I was invited, or I am invited. I won't go to the party. So is used to show the result. She studied hard, so she passed the math exam. Whereas, while. Whereas links two ideas that contrast with each other. They're just opposites. I use water when making pasta, whereas, while, although, my mother uses eggs. Rather than. Rather than is used to indicate negation as a contrary choice or wish. A company is stronger if it is bound by love rather than by fear. Unless means except on the condition that, or if not, you don't need to go unless you want to. If you don't want to, you don't need to go. Since is used to show result. Since I see you, I am better. Okay? Now, more examples coming. 1. I'd like to see you tomorrow, so let's have lunch together. My sister loves to eat, but I don't care much about food. When you begin an exercise program, you must be careful not to overdo it. My father, for instance, hurt his back by exercising too hard without warming up first. She had looked everywhere for a job. Eventually, she was called off for an interview. I'm happy to hear that. 5. She has been studying for hours, therefore she hopes to do well on the test. We've kept our fingers crossed for her. First, Mary went to the store, then she went to visit her mother. Okay, subsequently, afterwards, later. I'd like to read many books. Nonetheless, I don't seem to have enough time to read. John ate and ate, however, but he never gained weight. Joe ate too fast. As a result, therefore, thus, he had indigestion. 10. He stayed up too late last night. Consequently, therefore, he slept until noon. 11. I want you to buy milk, eggs, and fruit juice. Furthermore, I want you to be sure to get cereal and ice cream. 12. I was concentrating on my homework. Meanwhile, the soup boiled over. 13. First, I will boil the water. Second, I will brew the tea. And third, I'll serve it. 14. Joe, in fact, happens to be my best friend. Joe is my best friend. Happens to be is. 15. Jane studies all the time. In contrast, on the contrary, Billy never studies. And the last slide, let's say. We have seen the movie twice, and now we want to see it again. Not only, oops, sorry. Okay. Not only did my brother break his leg, but he also bruised his rib. My friend speaks Korean and English. She speaks Chinese. She also speaks Chinese. Cheating is dishonest. Moreover, it hinders students from learning. It stops them. Students should be on time. Furthermore, they must be prepared. You must complete this essay by 5 p.m. In addition, you must do the exercise on page 47. I've been to many countries. For example, I've been to Russia, Canada, Mexico, and Spain. He often eats strange foods. For instance, he once ate cow brains. Wow. I like to travel. Specifically, I enjoy places with old cathedrals. I love fruit. In particular, especially, I like bananas, pineapples, and berries. My friend hates skiing for several reasons. The first reason is that she dislikes being cold. Another reason is that she often falls. Bill earned an A on his essay, but Susan got a B. We wanted to leave at 8. However, Mike arrived too late. She hates house cleaning. On the other hand, she doesn't mind cooking. Students should attend class. Otherwise, they may lose their status. I'm not going out tonight. Instead, I will stay home and watch a video. Women usually enjoy shopping. In contrast, men often dislike it. They really do. Personally speaking, of course. He knows that he should do his homework, yet he never does it. Shame on him. I need to wear reading glasses. Nonetheless, I hate how I look in them. I know you don't like to study. Even so, you must pass your exam. There are many benefits to exercising. However, you must take some precautions to avoid injury. Even though the book is difficult to read, it is very interesting. Although the book is difficult to read, it is very interesting. Okay. So, enough examples, everyone, I hope. Well, guys, let's move on. Go to page 25, please. Okay, 25. 3A. Complete the following paragraph with the transition words or phrases given below. Okay. The words consequently, instead, for example, because, and furthermore. A vegetarian can be defined as someone who doesn't eat meat, fish, or other animal products such as eggs or cheese. Instead, he or she eats vegetables, fruits, grains, or seeds because this diet consists of non-meat food sources. A vegetarian typically consumes less fat and cholesterol than an individual who consumes meat. Furthermore, raising animals for food uses valuable land, water, and energy. Consequently, therefore, adopting a vegetarian diet helps conserve the valuable resources that our future depends on. So, one more time. Number one, instead. Number two, because. Number three, furthermore, what's more. Number four, consequently. Well, guys, a couple of vocabulary items here. You know who a vegetarian is. We have grains. Grains are these seeds from plants. Cholesterol. Okie dokie. Let's proceed. Exercise 3B. In the following sentences, the linking word is missing. Choose the correct answer. Yes, sir. Okay, let's give it a try. Number one, the new supermarket is so much cheaper than the one on John Street, than the supermarket on John Street. Furthermore, they do free home deliveries too. What's more, in addition, furthermore. Okay, you know, free home deliveries, everyone. You order something online and just they deliver it to your home without any charges. However means but, on the whole means generally or in general. Number two, Australia has some beautiful parts of the country. However, they also have a lot of dangerous animals. It shows a contrast, everyone. Though means while, even though, although, and despite means in spite of. Remember, after despite and in spite of, we use a phrase or a noun. Number three, despite the high risk involved, many scientists chase tornadoes so they can study them more closely. So, because we've got a phrase here, everyone, we need to use despite or in spite of. Chase means follow. Tornado is a strong, big, let's say, a violent storm. A violent storm. Closely, everyone, here means carefully, with details, paying a lot of attention, close attention. So, despite. Number four. Even though, although, while television can be educational, educational, I think it's better to read a book. Everyone, we've got this common mistake among our dear students. Remember, don't use but with even though, although, though, or while. You say, even though television can be educational, comma, I think it's better to read a book. Don't use a but, please. It is not English. Number five. So you can see there are both advantages and disadvantages of the new system for organizing the timetable. On the whole, I'd say it would be better to stick with the current system. On the whole. Well, advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons, pluses and minuses. Timetable means schedule. On the whole means in general, generally. Stick with means to continue. Yeah, stick with. Current system, it means the present system, the system we have now. Number six, Due to the rain and the high winds, they never went camping. Well, due to means because of, owing to. Number 7. This new computer has a better monitor. Its memory is two times as large as the current one, the one we have now, and we can use the internet with it. In short, its software will make our job so much easier. In short, to summarize, to put it in a nutshell. Number 8, Celine speaks in class when we are trying to work. She shouts out to other students when it's not necessary. And when she does ask a question, it's doubtlessly a stupid one just to get some attention. Okay, sorry guys, in number 7, I think I made a mistake. In number 7, choose finally, okay, finally. Sorry. So in number 8, Celine speaks in class when we are trying to work. She shouts out to other students when it's not necessary, and when she does ask me a question, it's doubtlessly a stupid one, just to get some attention. In short, she's very disruptive. She's a very disruptive presence in the class. I'm sorry, Mr. Phillicut. So, doubtlessly means certainly, without doubt, or beyond doubt, certainly. Disruptive, kind of annoying, upsetting, disturbing. So, she's a real nuisance, let's say. She's a pain in the neck. So, in short. And for number 7, finally, it's software. Yeah. Alright, let's keep moving. Hope you're not tired. Of course I'm not. Logical order. In a coherent paragraph, supporting sentences should be organized logically. 3 important orders for the logical arrangement of supporting sentences are: 1. Chronological order or order of time. Spatial order. Number 2. Spatial order or order of space. Emphatic order or order of importance. So remember we discussed coherence and a coherent paragraph, the way the sentences are connected, the connection between the ideas, which makes it just easy to understand and comprehensible. So we've got 3 important orders for the arrangement of ideas and the sentences in a paragraph. Chronological order, order of time, spatial order or order of space, and emphatic order, order of importance. Check out the example. This morning was crazy. My alarm clock was set for PM instead of AM, so I woke up really late. I just threw on some clothes and ran out of the door. I rode my bike as fast as I could and thought that I was going to be late for sure. But when I got there, everyone was outside and there were fire trucks all lined up in front of school. I guess somebody pulled the fire alarm before class started. It worked out though, because nobody really noticed or minded that I was tardy. Okay? So you see the order of events, chronological order here. So this morning was crazy. This morning was kind of chaotic. Something went wrong. You set your alarm, and I just threw on. Anyway, when you throw on clothes, you just get dressed quickly because you are in a hurry. So throw on clothes, and I ran out of the door. I just left left the room in a rush, and the person rode the bike. Then fire trucks, everyone, we have fire engines or fire trucks, those big trucks that we use to put out to stop fire. Line up means get ready for an action. There were some fire trucks, fire engines to put out the fire. And it worked out because they didn't notice, they didn't see or minded that I was tardy. Tardy means late. So, exercise 4. Decide whether each of the following paragraphs have chronological, spatial, or emphatic order. Order of time, space, or importance. Number 1. Powerful computers capable of translating documents from one language into another have recently been developed in China. The process of machine translation is complex. To translate a document from English into Japanese, for example, the computer first analyzes an English sentence, determining its grammatical structure and identifying the subject, verb, objects, and modifiers. Next, the words are translated by an English-Japanese dictionary. After that, another part of the computer program analyzes the resulting awkward jumble of words and meanings and produces an intelligible sentence based on the rules of Japanese sentence structure and the machine's understanding of what the original English sentence meant. Finally, the computer-produced translation is polished by a human bilingual editor. So, everyone, here we've got chronological order or order of time. Well, let's check out some vocabulary items. Capable of means to be able to do something. Can. So, powerful computers capable of translating means they can translate. And by the way, translate means to change one language into another. Recently means lately. So the process is complex, complicated, difficult to understand. To analyze means to study and examine something. To determine, to recognize, determine the grammatical structures, subjects, verb, objects, and modifiers. Everyone, modifiers can be adjectives and adverbs. For example, the dog with a long tail. With a long tail is the modifier here. Okay, then awkward. Well, awkward means kind of chaotic. Jumble of words means an untidy and confused mixture of words, group of words here. Intelligible, everyone. Intelligible means understandable, comprehensible. Okay, and polish, yeah. Polish, everyone. Polish here means to improve a piece of writing by making slight changes to it. Polish. So we improve a piece of writing. We kind of proofread it. We check it for grammar, punctuation, spelling, etc. Bilingual, guys, means someone who can speak two languages. Remember, We have monolingual, bilingual, and multilingual. Well, monolingual means a person who speaks one language. Bilingual, bi in English means two. Bilingual means a person who speaks two languages, and multilingual, someone who speaks several languages. And an editor is someone who is in charge of editing. Well, that's it, everyone. Time to land. Well, this is the end of another episode. Hope you enjoyed our program. Thanks for watching us. Well, wish you all the best. This is your captain, Mr. Mazlumi. Until next